Welcome to the first real sub-project of the 914 upgrade, and that's the tires. Seems like a simple job, right? Take the wheels off, take them to the tire store, buy new tires, bring them home, and attach them back on. That's what I thought too. Just wait until you see all the extra work and complications that arose. Some were me just being OCD, but others, I was an innocent victim. I hope the rest of the car isn't like this.
Please feed the YouTube algorithm by giving the video a like. If you want to see more like this, click subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of new videos. If you want to chip in on my expenses, I now have Patreon and YouTube memberships.
So here are the tires. They're from circa 2000, and as you can see, there's still lots of tread left, but rubber rot has set in, and they're beyond their legal usage time. So off they go. EVTV recommended that I go to Campus Tire here in town, and Jeff there really helped me figure out which would be the best replacements. Turns out he had 50 of them in stock, so I dropped the old ones off and agreed to pick them up the next day. While the car was up on the lift, I noticed how rusty the rotors were, so of course I was forced to clean the first rotor with a wire wheel on a drill. It was tedious and made lots of dust, but I'm happy with the results. While I was already there, of course, I checked all the brake pads too.
Okay, here we are on the workbench. I just pulled the brake pads after I cleaned the rotors and the caliper body. The brake pads have a ton of meat left on them, but they've got a ridge where the material's not been eaten away all to the edge of the pad. So I took the other one, ground it down, cleaned it up nice and shiny, and I'll do that with this one, then we'll pop them back inside. Okay, clean and shiny and fixed. Everything's working. Ready for tires. Okay, the front calipers were upgraded to BMW 3 Series before I bought the car, but the rears are still stock Volkswagen with the original calipers. So let's get this cleaned up. Well, the right rear cleaned up nicely. The pads have a lot of life left in them with no ridge on the edge, and they cleaned up well, and everything looks good in here. And left rear also looks good. Everything is good and nice and shiny. Brake pads are fine. And finally we come to the left front brake, which again polished up nicely. This is also the BMW 3 Series. Now the interesting thing is, I'm sure some people are screaming at me. Two things. One, it's just going to rust again. Yeah, that's fine. But my goal here was to really check the health of the rotor, which is absolutely dead flat and smooth and this thick, so it's got a lot of life left in it. And the other part of you are saying, yeah, but there's still a bunch of rust on this side. Well, that's true, but that will get quickly ground off as I do my first drives. And again, this effort was mostly to make sure that the system was healthy, and then I just can't help myself. I like to clean everything. Okay, I just picked up the tires from the tire guy. Very nice looking tires. I just have to give the rims a clean, and they just called me to say that they forgot to put my Porsche caps on here, and they just put their generic ones on. So I'll swing by the store and pick up my Porsche branded caps, and then we'll have 4 good tires back on the car. Okay, here's a surprise. I went to put the wheel back on. See if you see anything funny. This hole is completely stripped out, which means I get to replace the entire rotor assembly and the bearings. More parts. So here's the hub. I removed it. It's very greasy with the bearings inside, but the rust isn't too bad on the inside surface. That would have buffed out quite nicely. And here's the front. Very greasy in there with a bearing, and we're going to replace everything here. This guy will have a happy home. Got our parts all set up. And here's the one from the right-hand side. Seems a bit silly to replace one that's perfectly functional, but when it comes to brakes, you always do both sides. So this one is going to be sacrificed to the gods and recycled and come back as something fun. And we're going to order 2 complete sets. Okay, it's right at the end of the day, but I got my brake stuff. Beautiful new brake rotors and the wheel bearing kits that go into there. And that's a challenge for me. Never done that before. I have to find if somebody here at the shop knows how to pack the grease into a wheel bearing and press it into this. And of course there's 2 of them. Okay, today we're gonna get really greasy with my 2 gorgeous new rotors and the bearing kits. And I have a checklist from a YouTube video that I watched that was very detailed, step by step. So let's get started.
And I forgot to take video of this cluster fudge, but the kit that Rock Auto sells for the 914 doesn't fit. You can see the bearing race is 7 millimeters too wide for the hole, and the front bearing is too big also by 6 millimeters. I returned it, but I just can't understand how Rock Auto can get this so badly wrong. I measured, and the new rotor is exactly the same bearing dimensions as the old one.
Okay, after a very long kerfuffle with Rock Auto sending me the wrong parts, I tried to reorder them individually, but then Brian discovered these are bog standard Volkswagen Beetle hubs and bearings. So we ordered them from the local Napa shop here in town, and they delivered them in 5 minutes. So let's get greasy. Okay, both races are in. The back bearing is packed with this grease in here, and the rubber seal is in. Now I get to clean it and put it on the spindle and put the front bearing in. Okay, I got the back and the front races in. Hammer, sockets. This is so much fun. Well, with a little bit of talking sternly to the stub, I actually got the new entire system on, and it just spins beautifully. There's no wobble. Everything is happy. Now I put on the caliper and the tire. The caliper is on. It's a little bit of drag on the pads, but that's okay. The system will figure it out and balance itself. Well, after many failed attempts with bearings and other things, it's finally done, and I cleaned up the dust cap and painted it black, and it looks magnificent. Let's check the other one. Look at that, all ready for the wheel. Okay, flashing forward, I realized I forgot to make videos about a couple of important steps in this process. One is, this is the original lug bolt from the original rotor. When I tried to use this to put the same rims on the car, it bottomed out on the threads right here. See how this part is not threaded? When I tightened these all the way up, there was still about like 1/8 of an inch of play in the tire, and I couldn't figure it out. But it turns out that the way the hub has its screw holes is different than the original one. So the whole drop-in replacement thing is a giant pile of flaming garbage. So I thought, okay, what I can do is Napa actually stocks wheel spacers. And this one is maybe 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a quarter, yeah, it was more like a quarter. And what you do is you put this on, and then you put your wheel on, and then you run the bolts through. Well, turns out it's the wrong bolt size. They literally is not wide enough to get the bolt holes through there. See how that one doesn't line up right there? None of them are big enough. So that idea went out the window. Then I said, okay, what I really need is new bolt lugs like this, but with threads all the way down. And that's where I ordered these. They came in, they were perfect, they were magnificent, and the tires are on the car. And all of the wheels are done and on the car after the disaster of trying to get that rim to fit on that rotor. And they're in, and they're black, and as Jack says, paint it black and it disappears, so it looks like they're not even being held in. Have the Porsche dust cover and on the inflation nozzle, and that is a good looking tire. Now I can move on to something else. Just before we wrap up, I want to thank my Patreons, Peter Bouvier and Puppy, for their support. We also just popped over 2,000 subscribers, which is quite a nice milestone for my little channel. All support is greatly appreciated. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, please give it a thumbs up. I see that 81% of the viewers aren't subscribed. Please do, as it does help the YouTube algorithm. Take care and see you next time.